My name is Brenda Smith, and welcome to the annual celebration of Black History Month, sponsored by the, uh, the Piscataway African American Seniors Club. We have this program every year, and today our topic, we're focusing on Black resistance. We have poetry, we have different things, and we want each and every person to enjoy themselves. Under the leadership of our president, Ms. Joyce Coles, and the chairman of the History Club, uh, Joyce Diana Motley. Joyce got stuck. We would like each and every one of you to relax and enjoy the program. We hope to have fun. We hope that you're informed about uh, the African American culture, and we want you to hope that you learn something that you didn't know before. Thank you.
And since this is the Black History Resistance, the Year of Resistance, we're going to have a reading by Lois Green. Lois is going to fill in for one of our members who's not well, and she's going to read the African American resistance to lynching.
The topic this morning will be on lynching. It was composed or comprised by Diana Motley, who was our Black History chairperson, and I will read this for her since she is not feeling well today. Lynching is a form of violence in which persecutor, usually a mob, administers justice without a trial and executes a presumed offender. The presumed offender was often tortured, mutilated, and hanged from a tree by a noose in the United States. Many lynching incidents in the past were accompanied by public spectacles and parties. Although lynching was usually executed by a mob, it has also been executed by a lone vigilante, as was the case when George Zimmerman killed Trayvon Martin. It has also been executed by a lone police officer, as was the case when police officer Derek Chauvin killed George Floyd. The term lynching was most likely derived from the name of Charles Lynch, a Virginian justice of the peace who lived during the American Revolution and used his judicial system to punish British loyalties. Documented statistics of reported lynching in the United States indicate that between 1882 and 1951, over 4,700 people were lynched, approximately 3,400 of whom were Black. Hence, Black people were the primary victims of this crime. Lynching became especially frequent in the South during the period right after the Reconstruction era. Ida B. Wells was one of the most vocal advocates against lynching during this period and used the power of the pen to expose the evilness and unlawfulness of this practice. She was born into slavery in 1862 in Holly Springs, Mississippi, and freed by Emancipation Proclamation At the age of 16, she lost both her parents and infant brother in the 1878 yellow fever epidemic. In 1892, a close friend in Memphis became a victim of a lynching. This friend co-owned a Black-owned grocery store that was competition for local white grocers. Ida B. Wells wrote newspaper articles decrying the lynching and her friend and the wrongful deaths of other African Americans. Putting her own life at risk, she spent 2 months traveling the South in order to gather information on other lynching incidents. She documented lynching through her pamphlet entitled Southern Horrors, Lynch Law in All Phases. She exposed lynching as the violent and barbaric practice of whites in the South used to intimidate and oppress African Americans who were perceived as economic or political competition. She also exposed many of the false claims of rapes of white women that were used to justify lynching black men. She wrote articles on lynching and other atrocities committed against black people, upset some, oh, her articles on lynching and other atrocities committed against black people upset some Memphis whites so much that they stormed the office of her newspaper and destroyed all of her equipment. Fortunately, she had been traveling to New York City at the time. She was warned that she would be killed if she ever returned to Memphis. Staying in the North, she wrote an in-depth report on lynching for the New York Age, an African-American newspaper run by a former slave. In 1893, she followed up with greater research and detail on lynching in a 100-page pamphlet entitled The Red Record. This pamphlet had far-reaching influences in the debate about lynching and grabbed the attention of Northerners who knew little about lynching and accepted the common explanation that black people deserved this fate. Ida B. Wells set the foundation for black resistance to lynching in the United States. Through her research, writing, and lecture tours, some attribute her efforts to a decrease in African American lynching in her time. One of her most famous quotes, taken from the advertising material for her lecture, is, "The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them." She demonstrated her adherence to this principle through her life's work for social justice and equality. This practice of exposing the truth was used also by Martin Luther King Jr. during the American Civil Rights Movement. The popularity of television in the 1950s was utilized to expose the cruel and barbaric treatment of nonviolent civil rights protesters by Southern law enforcement and vicious police dogs. Another famous Ida B. Wells quote, taken from her autobiography entitled Crusade for Justice, is, "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty." The truth of this principle has been demonstrated through the history of continual lynching in the United States. Sadly, lynching has continued to our present day with the modern day lynching of African Americans such as Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, Sandra Bland, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Gardner, Ahmaud Arbery, Amadou Diallo, Tamir Rice, Tyree Nichols, and many others. Detailing each of their individual circumstances could not be covered fully in this lone presentation. In 2018, an anti-lynching memorial museum called the National Memorial for Peace and Justice was opened in Montgomery, Alabama. This memorial was initiated by the lawyer Brian Stevenson to showcase and educate everyone about many instances of lynching in the United States. Hence, Brian Stevenson used the museum to continue the tradition set by Ida B. Wells and turn the light of truth on our ugly history of lynching in order to right the wrong of this evil practice. On March the 7th, 2022, Congress finally passed a federal anti-lynching bill called the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act. This bill was passed after 120 years of trying to pass an anti-lynching bill in this country. This bill makes lynching a federal hate crime, punishable by up to 30 years in prison. The most recent passing of this bill, after 120 years of trying to pass such a bill, demonstrates that eternal vigilance truly is the price of liberty. Truly, Ida B. Wells was ahead of her time and set an example for all of us to follow in our pursuit to resist oppression and to pursue equal justice. We must continue to turn the light of truth on modern day lynching and other atrocities committed against African Americans. In addition to the power of the pen and media exposure, we now have the ability to video record instances of modern day lynching and other crimes. We must do what we can to speak out. We can also support civil rights organizations of our choice in the pursuit of justice. We must remember and act on principle that eternal vigilance is the price of justice. Thank you so much for your time.
One of the most interesting things that I heard in that writing is that lynching really describes any act of violence, not the actual type of lynching, okay? Now I want to present Christine Harris and Hazel Witherspoon because they're going to read a poem written by one of our members who also is out ill, Rebecca Walker. Not only did Rebecca Walker write this poem, but it was also published. And when they recite it, you'll go back to the recent incidents that happened right here in New Jersey, Bridgewater.
The name of the poem is The Question by Rebecca Walker, February 21st, 2022. Standing up for a buddy, being bullied by another. Words and fists fly in a mall called Bridgewater. Two teens are fighting, as sometimes teens do. A crowd gathers, and a crowd starts to gather to see the fight too. There's a lot of commotion, kids yelling as such. The police come to see what is all the fuss. Have they come to help, to intervene, to protect? It's what we would think, what we would expect. But they targeted the black teen to keep on the floor. They put cuffs on his hands, and indeed there is more. They put a knee on his back and one near his neck. Guilt was assumed. He was the suspect.
14 years old and somebody's son. 14 years old and the younger one. Didn't he have a right to be treated with respect? Couldn't he have been allowed to sit and reflect? Even the older teen, seated on the chair, stood to observe what was happening there. He offered his hands to receive the cuffs too, but the policewoman said, "It's not about you." But children are fair-minded, and even that teen knew that wasn't right as he witnessed the scene. We adults shook our heads and wondered what to do. How can we protect our children from violence by you?
Thank you. That was something to think about and to believe that it was in Bridgewater, New Jersey, right here where we live, that we still have the issue of being able to stand for our rights and our color should not make the difference. We got one more poem, and Ida wrote this poem, and we want you to hear it. And I don't know, Lois said it, I believe, but Ida is a founder of the African American Seniors Club. And and she just told me she's 90 years old, so I have to say that.
African American history. We celebrated, you know that we celebrated the shortest month in the year. And we are delighted to get together and celebrate our ancestry. African American history, the amazing truth. Listen, my children, and you shall hear all the grandiose info about Paul Revere. But listen as closely as you can. You'll seldom, if ever, hear of the achievements of the black man. Our amazing truth is suppressed and not told. But we have great past and present heroes, both young and old. We are given 1 month to crowd everything in, but truth crushed to earth will truly rise again. When anything is sensationalized, it is about our sins, so everyone will think our plaudits have yet to begin. But we have discovered, we have invented, we have composed, we have won. We have succeeded in everything under the sun. Whenever we think we are secure in the mainstream of society, our fame and fortune are reduced to unpleasant notoriety. Then the rhetoric of people in high places become harsh and mean, and all of our achievements and accomplishments are strategically swept off the scene. We have been victorious in battles that seem futile to assail. However, deserved recognition seemed to no avail. Since society predicts black Americans are destined to fail, we must continue in the struggle, believe in justice and fight, and rights will surely prevail. So I say to you today, as we allow the amazing truth to enlighten, we must draw in our reins and cause them to tighten. For all generations are entitled to know and embrace that our divine force is high and mighty and full of grace. Even if society changes the color of his face, whatever we do that is expeditiously concealed surely will come to light and be undisputedly revealed. We have positive legacy to proudly acclaim and God-given blessings to loudly proclaim. So we must help our children and grandchildren to realize that they must listen to wisdom and become consistently wise. That they must remember Dr. King, and that each has his own dream and must give God the glory as they move in on God's team. We must get involved so the teen violence and killing will cease, and ensure that respect for self and for each other will increase. Disciplined education and healthy work ethic, God will provide. So we must encourage our children to stay on God's side. When times get tough and the road is rough and good friends are few, if we align ourselves with His holy word, He'll surely see us through. So listen, my children, and you shall hear that our future generations have nothing to fear, because our African and American heritage is not a burden to bear, but true history to be told right here, over there, and everywhere.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you very much.
You know, someone said, and I can't remember who, I can't remember people won't remember what you said, people won't remember what you did, but they will remember how you made them feel. And so we hope we made you feel great today. And we're going to end as usual with reach out and touch. And we don't have our whole chorus here, but let's go ahead and reach out and touch. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this a better world if you can. Reach out and touch somebody's hand. Make this a better